To everyone who has joined us now, I'm so glad to welcome you to the IB chat today. So good morning, afternoon, and evening to anyone who has joined here on a rainy Singapore afternoon. First, a bit about us. Since our inception 4.5 years ago, 4.5 years ago, Ascenda has grown quickly and to encompass a team of over 100 teachers that have worked with over 7,200 students. Our goal is to bridge that gap between learning and enjoyment, vaulting past this common pitfall and really enabling our students to gain skills that will serve them well, not only through their academic careers, but beyond that as well. By bringing in experts and examiners to create engaging and interactive sessions, we help learners reach their objectives through one-on-one coaching. Going beyond the content and focusing on how to write exams effectively, how to manage your time in order to balance a curriculum that, let's be honest, looks impossible to balance. And by matching students with educators across the world who are best able to help them thrive, we have found a formula that has supported many learners to achieve beyond what they thought was possible and even get into their dream universities as well. So today we're going to hear from our two hosts who will be leading discussion before we round off with Q&A for 25 minutes or so. Folks, sit back, get cozy. Let me introduce you to our two hosts for the day. First off, Ruchi Stephen. Now, Ruchi has been teaching business management for 14 years, 6 of which have been as an IB DP educator and an examiner. She is deeply passionate about her subject and enjoys watching her students fall in love with the subject too. She values creativity and innovation and includes both in her commitment to see her students succeed in all aspects of their final years of academic development. Ruchi believes that learning should happen by the way. It should be easy and organic so that the learner feels enriched after every single conversation and lesson. So welcome, Ruchi, and thank you for being with us today.
Hi, everyone.
Secondly, and I'd like to introduce you to our other host for the afternoon. We have Magdalena Krohn. Now, Magda is an IB DP English teacher. She's an extended essay coordinator and an examiner as well, having completed IB DP herself as a student. She knows the rigors that it entails and is really keen to be able to pass on the combined knowledge of seeing this from both lenses, teacher and student. Now, Magda has worked in international schools around the world, and her experience in different cultures has enabled her to have an intimate grasp of how to best succeed in the IBDP in any environment. So welcome, Magda, and thank you for joining us today as well.
Hi, thank you.
All right, ladies, I'm going to hand it over to you. You guys are the experts. I'm just the one who gets to run my math up at the beginning. So, ladies and gentlemen, Magda and Ruchi.
Thanks, Ethan. Okay, guys, so welcome and thanks for being here. So we're going to talk about a bunch of things today, a bunch of strategies, kind of going to sum it up into these 3 aspects that you should keep in mind. We're going to unpack time management a little bit. We're going to talk about specific study tips that are going to help you succeed. And then we'll touch upon the importance of the IB cores, the extended essay, CAS, and TOK.
Great. I'm sure as IB students, we always wish that we had 26 hours to our day. And sometimes even that feels less, right? And I think time management is something that as IB teachers and as students, we're learning together. And, we often say this, that it's all about habits. And there are these different theories which say it takes 21 days. So some people argue that it takes 90. As of now, as students, let's start making that a habit today itself, right? Because especially for IB now that we, for some of you are grade 11 or grade 12, especially if you're in grade 12, we are just like about 5-6 months away. And we still have good time to ourselves to start making habits. And when we're talking about habits and when we're talking about the cycle and these routines, consistency helps. And we know we've often heard people talk about this over and over again, but this is the one area that we mess up over and over again. So let's just try and see what can be done in small ways, small ways of starting with just saying, okay, 2 hours of this subject a day, baby steps. Okay, I'm going to exercise for 40 minutes a day. Now, why are we talking about exercising? Why are we talking about sleeping? Because in its entirety, it's really important for us to form these small habits that will take you through the next 6 months. And if you're a grade 11 student, even better, start now. But let's start these small habits today. Yeah, we'll move on to the next slide. This is just a little sample that we have here of how you can look, what your week could look like. And realistically speaking, if this is done well, you will feel a lot more productive. You'll feel a lot more energetic. And somehow you might just feel you have those 26 hours to yourself and not 24. If you're able to make most of these, these hours and these minutes, it's just a small breakup. It's realistic. We've taken into account your school hours, your sports time, dinner, rest, fun, sleep, all of it. And it's doable, guys. It's doable, right? Great. Thanks. We move on to the next one.
Okay, so another great thing to do, and this is another hard one. Like, it's one of those things that, again, you're like, do I need to, it's like extra work. But creating a study plan, if you're on top of that from the very beginning, trust me, it's going to be immensely helpful for you later down the road. Wherever you are on your IB journey, if you're just starting or if you're, getting ready to study for exams, it's not too late to start and create a study plan and figure out this roadmap for yourself. Like, how are you going to get all this knowledge and keep it and be able to succeed? So within that, maybe you might have heard of SMART goals. These are really, really good. It's a really good strategy, to manage your goals and set yourself small goals, like whatever it is you need to learn, whatever it is you need to revise. Use the SMART acronym to get from where you are to where you want to be. And this does really work. So if you haven't tried it yet, it's a really good idea to give it a go. And the other thing is, when you're studying, do prioritize your higher levels. Ask yourself, what else can you do to succeed in this, in your higher levels, which are probably going to challenge you a little bit more. So if you have practice papers, can you find access to any more? Your teacher is going to give you some practice papers, but can you do more? Because the more that you do, the more you're going to be comfortable doing that in the actual exam. Think about what exactly you need to study. Are there any topics within the subject that you're still a little rusty on, or you don't really know how a certain formula works, or you don't remember, a certain theme or character relationship in a novel? Like, get onto that stuff and really study it. Okay, we can move on. All right. So the other thing going off from that is be strategic, strategize. Before you start a study session, review the stuff you already know. Look over your notes. Make sure that you've got a plan for what you're learning in that particular period. And then use note-taking to write down any new knowledge to kind of solidify what you know with what knowledge you're adding to that, and then summarize what you've learned. And this is not, it's not just like a random way of reading whatever you've been given by your teacher or reading over your notes, but it's actually pre-planned and you've got a strategy to your studying. And this is really going to help you understand what you have covered already and what you need to cover. Oh, and make yourself a nice study space too. Just one last little thing down there. That's a really small thing, but if you have a dedicated study space and it's nice and tidy and it's pleasant to sit at, it makes it so much nicer and so much easier and less stressful to get through all the content that you need to learn. Thanks. Okay, you can change the slide now. All right. Core requirements. If you're already in the IB, you know what the core is. It's the extended essay, TOK, and CAS. I'm going to talk a little bit about the extended essay. Well, I mean, you know what it is already, so I'm not gonna talk too much about it. But the extended essay is really important to your diploma journey. At the beginning of the process, when students first start the diploma, it's like this terrifying thing, right? I'm sure some of you can relate. It's like, we have to write a 4,000-word essay, what? And it's that on top of, you know, all your subjects. It's not just 3 or 4 subjects, you have to take so many more. You've got this essay looming. But if you do master it, and if you understand the criteria, you understand you know, what this essay is asking you to do, and you break it down into small chunks, it becomes less daunting, because you are given a lot of time to, you know, to do it, to research and to write it. So if you from the beginning approach that as a journey that you can break down into small steps, that also gets easier. Okay, move on. And then theory of knowledge is the other one, TOK. I'm sure you guys already know what that is. Again, some students find this easy and doable. Most find it hard. Again, when you're at the beginning of your diploma, or, you know, wherever you are actually, make sure that you break this down and you have a good relationship also with your teacher who can help you clarify certain concepts. And I'm going to talk a little bit later, we're kind of introducing these things right now, but I'm going to talk later about why it's important to stay on top of the cores, especially TOK and the extended essay. Okay, next slide.
Yeah, and while TOK and EE is so daunting, this comes to the rescue, and maybe that little healing balm sometimes that we need in the IB. But I often tell my students that please understand the heart of CAS, right? What IB is looking at is holistic development, and CAS can really help you build your college profiles, right? I'm sure some of us are already or have already done the early bird applications, and maybe you are up for the next one coming up in Jan, or you're applying next year. But this really helps you kind of, you know, get to the true essence of what the course is about. It's the IB program is not just about academics, and I'm sure you already know this. I don't want to dwell too much on this, but build a good CAS portfolio. I'll just give a quick example. I had a student was this really hardworking student, and sadly, she didn't score that much, but she got through NYU actually with her college application, where she presented her CAS portfolio, and it worked wonders. So don't take CAS lightly. It can really, really help. Okay, thanks. Move on to the next one. We have many case studies, but these are just 2 of our students who've joined us as a team, and we've really helped them in their journey at scoring better at the IB. They're still with us. Alex is still with us, in fact, and I've taught him business myself personally, and I've really seen him just grow. Like, so I think what we do is what we're going to do in the next couple of minutes is help you to see what you need to crack to become from an average to get to that top 7. Yeah, so this is just a few examples, but we have lots to share with you. Thanks. Great.
Okay, so here we go. How do you get closer to the 40 or plus in the IB? One big piece of advice, especially if you're starting the diploma, but you know, wherever you are on that journey right now is, and it's not too late to do this, but stay ahead or get ahead, because it's very, very easy to feel like, you know, you're running behind a moving train and you're just trying to hold on to whatever you can and trying to juggle all these things. But if you keep calm mind and you stay ahead and you're reflective, and then assess your strengths and weaknesses from the beginning and know what it is that you need to put more energy into. If you maintain that calm mindset from the beginning, it's going to be easier for you to manage all the different assessments and all the different things that you need to manage. So looking at your strengths and weaknesses, it's a good idea, you know, even now, even if you're in the second year of IB, take a step back and reflect. what are you good at? Where have you improved, and where do you feel solid? Where do you feel your strengths already are? You don't really need to get stronger in your strengths. I mean, it's always good to get better, sure, but look at your weak areas, your weak spots. Maybe you haven't done enough practice papers and you're terrified about the exam. So get some more practice papers from whatever subject it is that you're anxious about. Look at the exam paper, break it down, look at the amount of time that you're going to have to take that exam, and practice. Time yourself, do it at home, be really strict with yourself until you start to feel confident in that area, and apply this to any other area. If there's something in, say, one of the sciences that you're just not getting, maybe a formula or something that you're like, how does that work? Sit down, break it down, look it up online, or ask your teacher or your tutor, and make sure that you feel confident in that area. The second thing is familiarize yourself. Sorry, just to the previous slide. Familiarize yourself from the beginning with the internal and external assessments. Some students go into the diploma kind of like, yeah, my teacher will tell me everything. And yeah, they will. But that means you're just waiting for stuff to be given to you. Staying ahead means you're ahead. You already know. You've looked at, okay, so we've got this, and this is 20% of my grade, and then we've got this assessment, and that's going to be then, and this is going to be due then. And this is going to help you stay calmer. Like, you're not waiting for any surprises. You know what's coming. Okay, now we can move on. Okay, the other strategy is systematize everything, and this is connected to what I've been talking about. But get organized, even wherever you are, even now, if you're, halfway through. Systematize your organization, your note-taking in class. Have a separate notebook for every subject if you don't already. Use highlighters, color code stuff, be really neat about it. Don't just have one notebook where you randomly put all your notes. Have a separate folder for all the handouts you get from your teacher. And then revise this stuff. Don't just take notes and then put it away and never look at it again. Your note taking is for you, right? You're not just sitting there, your teacher's talking and you're copying stuff down. Write down what is going to be useful to you. So note taking is pretty subjective and individual. Okay. Moving on to practice. Keep testing your knowledge. Again, I mentioned practice tests before. You can do practice tests. Your teacher will give you practice tests. Okay, this is something, and you know this already, to prepare you for mocks, to do assessments, to get your predicted grades. Your teachers will give you practice tests, and that's great, and that helps you. But do more on your own. Because the more you do them, the more you're going to feel really confident about the diploma. You're going to feel confident about what's coming in the exam, and you're going to feel confident about what you need to know and how you need to structure that knowledge, depending on the exam. If it's a written exam, like a subjective exam like English, or economics or history, where the exam consists of sitting down and writing an essay, that's not just knowledge, that's also strategy. And the more that you practice, especially when you get feedback on that, when you come to sit the exam, you want to feel chill. You want to sit down. Okay, you don't know exactly what the question is, but the strategy is already there. You know that you have a certain amount of time. You can sit down, take a deep breath and just be like, I got this. I've done this already. Next slide. Going back to, so I said I would talk a little more about the core, especially theory of knowledge and extended essay. Okay, some students tend to get so stressed about the extended essay and theory of knowledge. They're like, well, it's secondary. It's not the exams. It's not the subjects. And they shift their attention away from these two things. But it's really important to remember that at the end of the day, if you do well in these two areas, you get extra points. And you can see in this matrix and in the diagram here, that you can get up to 3 extra points on your total diploma, and that can really change things. Even if you don't do that great on some of your exams, if you do well in these two, you can get points added onto your diploma, to your final score, and that can really make all the difference, going from 39 to 42. So do pay attention to this. It is important. Slide.
Great. Thanks, Magda. So a couple of things that, as an examiner, there are particular things that we are looking at. Okay, so one is the first thing is coursework submission. Right now, like Magda said, we are often so worked up about the I's and A's, and I'm sure you feel that pressure. Oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do this. And well, that pressure is real. But please take into account that it's 20%. It's 20%, right? Your 80% still lies with the exams. So ensure that you finish your exam, you finish your coursework at least 5 months, before the real final exams, which is your May series or your November series. Now, why we do this is we set earlier timelines so that we get enough time to focus on the 80%, which is crucial, right? Yes, the I's and E's are very, very important, and the TOK is very important, but start beforehand and give yourselves 5 months just to focus on the 80%. If you've got that right, if you split that time right, you'll have enough to focus on that 80%. All right, someone also threw in a question. Why is it that I'm studying and not scoring? And I'm sure so many of you feel that, oh, I've been spending hours and hours. Okay, now the deal with IB is, yes, you know the content, but what they want you to do is answer the question correctly. Now, there is a slight difference there. Let me just help you see that with the help of an example, right? If I'm asking a student to explain I'm a business teacher, so I'm going to use a business example. Explain an advantage or explain 2 advantages of being a sole trader. That's a simple, direct question. Now, a student could go in and he knows what's a sole trader. He knows what's a sole trader good at. And he can just write, okay, a sole trader is so-and-so. He's a person who runs, manages, controls his business, and he gives in 1 advantage. Out of 4, as an examiner, I can only give this child 2 marks. Is the content right? Yes. Why am I not giving this child marks? It's because when you have this kind of a question, we need to ensure that your assessment objectives are being catered to. So when you're structuring your answers in each of your respective subjects, you will have assessment objectives. There could be 4, there could be 3, there could be 5. Look at what those assessment objectives are. When you're answering, ensure that, am I ticking these right? Am I ensuring that these assessment objectives are met with? Because in your mark scheme, out of a 6-mark answer, I can't give you more than 2 marks for 1 assessment objective. It's just 2. So even if you write worth 4 there's no point, because that's all I can give you. So understand your assessment objectives, and the best way to do it is go back to your past papers. Look at the mark schemes, right? Coming back to, I already spoke about managing your time well. And this is what I want to emphasize on. Give yourselves 5 months to just do past papers. You should have finished content by now, by December and say first week of Jan. I'm sure a lot of schools start their mock exams. Finish the content so that Jan, Feb, March, April, we are only using that time for past papers, mark schemes, revision, unit-wise, paper-wise, however you want to do it. And there's this one tip that I always tell my students is also, normally you're just tired, right? And then you come back and you're like, I want to study, and I'm just going to read the mark scheme. I'm just going to read the textbook. I'm going to think about it in my head. So I'm looking at a good 20-mark answer and I'm analyzing it in my head. Well, that's good because you're thinking about it, but it's a whole nother ball game to pen it down. Please pen down your answers and do it within the given time period. Remember, if your paper is 2 hours, 15 minutes, that's that. So when you revise, you can't take a good 45 minutes to write that answer in a good flowy language and with good handwriting. Don't bother about that. Make sure when you're answering and practicing, do it within the stipulated given time period, and do it like you are writing a final board exam. So when you're writing the exams, the answers, keep two things in mind. Assessment objectives. Am I catering to all the assessment objectives? Second is, I have 12 minutes for an 8-mark answer, and I cannot take more than that. So those are some things that if you keep in mind, as an examiner, we know that you're catering to that. Thanks. Yeah, we'll move on to the next slide. Right. And just as some insider tips, I'll really emphasize on this, read up the assessment criteria. In fact, this is important even for your extended essays or for your IAs. Look at what assessment criteria really are. Assessment objectives are for your answers. Assessment criteria are for your IAs and EEs. What are they really looking at for you to score that? So each assessment criteria, if you look, will have a band, right? So it'll have a band of, say, 1 to 6 marks. Where do you score a 2? Where do you score a 6? And rate yourself and see, okay, am I getting a 6 on 6 on this? Why am I not? Am I lacking critical thinking? Am I lacking presentation? Is my E lacking structure? So look at the criteria, and you yourself will be able to gauge. Now, it's important for you to know this because there are some marks which are a giveaway, right? Like you can easily score on structure. You can easily score on presentations. Those are no-brainers. Work on your RPPF forms. So that's a given, like a 6 mark just to take away, right? So those are things, if you know your criteria as well, you'll know, like Magda said, you'll know what your strengths are, pull those up. Keep your learner portfolios updated. Make sure you have that ready and be strategic, plan ahead. And like I said, finish off content by first week of Jan. And make sure the next couple of months, you're only preparing for the external exam, no touching your coursework whatsoever. And if we've got that, we practice. Great. Thank you. Let's move on to the next one. Thanks. Over to you, Ethan.
Folks, I know that's a lot of information to download in a short period of time. There, I know that I've got certain questions here or there. I've had certain questions in the past myself, but anyway, pop some questions in. Just try to see what you've got. I can start us off, but first off, I'd just like to say this: just focus specifically on IBS. And now we know what we're doing at this point in time. We've worked with over 1.6 thousand students. Sorry, 1.6 thousand students in 4.5 years. And the grade improvement has been quite significant in a lot of them. As you saw in just the 2 examples that we gave, both of those young men were not very confident in what they were doing at all. But beyond just the grades, what we were able to see in those 2 young fellas was there was actually a change in their attitude to the way that they approach certain things and the way that they were actually able to approach their subjects at different points as well. And it was really interesting because they sent back their sort of report card for the next bit, and it showed in what their teachers' comments were as well. There was a bit more focus, there was a bit more proactivity and everything along those lines. And that's what we really like to see as well. Because as much as these grades are important for you now, if you can inculcate the right habits and the right attitudes as you move forward beyond your academic career, you are only going to succeed and, well, tenfold at that point in time. It's only just going to continue further. So without further ado, I know that the question in the webinar chat was answered already by Ruchi, so thank you for that. I've got one question that I just want to start us off with, and then I'm going to go to the question and answer one. But the question that I'd love to ask is this: if we're starting our IAs and EEs early, well ahead of the assignment date, is there a worry that we won't have the actual content knowledge and the understanding to succeed in these IAs as we would if we waited for a little bit longer and gained a bit more knowledge?
Okay, go ahead, Magda. I'll speak up.
You go ahead, Ruchi.
All right. So I have students asking me this question all the time, especially for extended essays, because a lot of schools that I know start their extended essays in grade 11 in the month of December itself, and they finish it off by September of grade 12. So they are already almost like 8 or 9 months in advance. Do they know the content? Yes and no. But that is why the extended essay is designed in such a way that you do your own research and you learn the content along the way. A lot of teachers, what we do, especially what I do in business, is I teach important tools that are essential for the extended essays and IAs beforehand in grade 11. So there are certain tools that need to be covered. Of course, we can't cover the entire content, but there are certain students who take up topics which are maybe outside of those tools, and they can read up on that. This is why it's an independent form of learning as well, which is why if you have tutors or external help, they can guide you along the way. But it's absolutely doable. In fact, it's recommended. It's recommended that you finish your IAs and AEs, finish coursework minimum 5 months in advance.
Okay, and with the IAs, even if you don't have all the content and all the knowledge, getting ahead also means that you understand what is going to be expected of you for the IA, and you know how to succeed. So you know the structure, you know the assessment criteria, you know what the expectations are, and what a good one looks like, what is an example of excellent work. And if you even have that in your head before you have the content, that is so much better, because you're already prepared, and then later down the line you don't have to think about all those things. Like, it's like putting the structure in and then you just fill it. You know, you're building a house, so you put up the framework or whatever you call it, and then you fill it with the knowledge and the furniture later. So be ahead and understand what the IA requirements are for each subject.
Fantastic. Thank you to you both. There's a question from June in the audience. June's asked, and this is probably to you, Magda, is preparing 2 texts for language and literature paper 2 enough? For instance, Crucible and Othello.
Is preparing 2 texts enough? You need to have a minimum of 2, and then your teacher is going to suggest at least 2 that you should know for paper 2. If you can, it's a good idea to have another one in that quiver, just in case you get a question and you think, oh no, that 3rd text is going to be better to compare with this one for this question. So yes, it's absolutely a good idea to have at least a 3rd one, but you've got to be really careful, because you can't write your paper 2 about a text that you've already done for something else in English. But the answer is, 2 is enough. I mean, it's not the knowledge. Yeah, you do need to have a good knowledge of those texts, but at the end of the day, you're going to get a choice of 4 questions on paper 2. So it really is about your choice of question. And if you have 2 books that you already know pretty well, you're going to be able to figure out, okay, which question is going to be good to compare these 2 books. But if you have a 3rd one, it can only serve to your advantage.
Absolutely understand. So if you're a bit time strapped, maybe 2 is the way to go if you want to be able to be a little smart about it. But obviously 3 is going to be able to take your answer potentially to that next level as you work through the questions and look at what you know. Interesting. Okay. Another question that's just been posed, and I do apologize, but you mentioned, particularly if we go back to the time management slide, that there was a lot you wanted to put in some free time, some relaxation time for folks. Now, I was talking about this earlier on to everyone who wasn't here, but I know when I did my diploma, a lot of the folks in my school, my peers used to tell me, or at least my seniors used to tell me, you can choose but 2 of 3 things when you're in IB. And it's really simple. You can choose good grades, good sleep, or a good social life. And you can only choose 2 of those 3. Yet here we seem to have a really nice mix of all of them. So, but given that the stress of university applications nowadays and just how amazing you have to be, how do you see this as something that's actually feasible, this particular example weekly schedule?
Do we think that this is feasible? I think it is, but as with any scheduling, you got to stick to it. And it's very easy to slip up. And especially if you're very dedicated to your studying, it's very easy to go into your rest and fun time and be like, oh, but I need to finish this homework. So I'm going to skip on, I'm not going to go for a run today, or I'm going to stay up super late and finish studying this. So if you stick to this, which I think is the hardest part, then I think, yes, it is doable. And I don't think you need to sacrifice any, your social life during these 2 years. Ruchi, anything to add?
So realistically speaking, I don't know if children sleep for 8 hours. And social media, I mean, let's be realistic. It's such a big part of who we are today. And so I think the key is make it realistic. Okay. And like Magda said, you will only stick to it if it's realistic. Like, I know for some people, 5 hours may not work, but then what are you doing with that other hour? Is there anything productive you're doing than just whiling away your time, right? So, I mean, for some kids, I know some kids who've done it in 3 hours and 4 hours and got that 42 and got that 44. But then the other time they've spent well. So see what your strengths are. Again, going back to what are your strengths? What makes you really happy to get back to study? And whatever you do, stick to it. I think it will work.
That's a good one. Folks, I'm actually going to allow one of our participants to talk because Kaivalya, I apologize. I don't fully know how to put your question across for everyone here, but maybe you can ask it yourself. So I'm going to allow you to talk. Or I invite you to ask your question verbally, if you can. Okay, no worries. Just in case that does happen, what I'll do is I'll put this out there for you instead. I believe it's a teacher. I believe this is a question from an educator. Kaivalya teaches a couple of different things. Oh, sorry, Kaivalya, go ahead. I see you've unmuted.
Okay, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Okay, my question is, in TOK, we are subject teachers, but strictly limited knowledge, and students at times take AOK, which is their higher level subject, and they still struggle with that. So, what is your advice in that way, like in that case, that how can we help them better, to really bring in that AOK in a more stronger way in their essay?
Magda? Sorry, it was a bit quiet in my ears at least. But...
So if I understood correctly, how can we collaborate with a specific a TOK teacher to help a student better understand the subject? I hope I answered this correctly, or I hope I understood your question correctly, Kaivalya. But if it's coming from a tutor's or educator's perspective and you're helping a student with the TOK, then I guess my go-to would be to understand the assessment criteria for the TOK essay, and understand how it is that they have been learning the content, and then the assessment criteria, so that even if you don't have any contact with the TOK teacher, at least you understand and you're on the same page, because the assessment criteria are what they are. I don't know, does that answer your question, or did I completely miss? I'm so sorry.
Hopefully that helps a little bit. Ruchi, do you have any way that you might say this? So, for instance, how can TOK teachers collaborate with area-specific teachers to really help bring out areas of knowledge for their students within their lessons? Or do you think, or how do you do it yourself when you teach?
Yeah, so I'll just give an example for this, all right? So when I'm teaching business, what I do is I ensure that we, in every alternate or every class, we ask them about a TOK question. The thing with humanities, especially with my subject, is that it's such a conversational subject, and so should it be with every other subject for that matter. And the textbooks these days, Kaivalya, I believe, are designed in such a way that there are a lot of TOK questions reported upon. So I had a student who, I was just teaching them pricing and value, and he came up with this very simple question that if water is so much more valuable, like in terms of necessity, and we need it, then why are diamonds so much more expensive? It's a great TOK question, right? So I think as teachers, it is just to take your content and see scope for areas for the the WOKs or the AOKs. And I think the best part is we do have textbooks to support that. I think it just boils down to how the teacher inculcates and gives time. See, I think all of us, there's a time crunch as much as it is for teachers. Because I mean, for students, it's for teachers. And sometimes we don't dwell on the TOK questions. But I think a lot of teachers are doing that. I mean, I do a lot of TOK discussion. It doesn't have to be like a TOK essay, that is like extravagant. But the simple, just get them to think about the area of knowledge is enough. And that's how we do it in my class, at least. I hope that answers your question.
Hopefully that helps a little bit, but I'm sure it does, even from any regard, educator, parent, or learner at that point in time, hopefully. Another question, and maybe we're going to go slightly different here, but what's the difference between IB certificate and IB diploma?
All right. So an IB diploma is 6 subjects, right? So there are 6 groups, and you need to take 1 from each group. If I have to list the 6 groups, I'll just quickly do it. Your first one is languages. The second one is a foreign language. Okay, so you call that language acquisition. The third one is humanities. Your fourth one is sciences. Fifth being math, and sixth being your arts, right? So you've got to pick one from each, definitely from the first 5. Sometimes a lot of students don't want to take art, but you need to have the 5 for sure. That's how the diploma works, right? And the diploma is a more comprehensive, a more detailed, a more rigorous curriculum than the certificate. The certificate lightens it up for the students. It's for students who don't want to go through that rigor. And the diploma also has the CAS, the EE, and the TOK, making it compulsory for the diploma students. But on the other hand, for the certificate students, they can drop the EE and the TOK. CAS is optional for them if they want to do it for their college profiles. But they can definitely drop the TOK EE, which is sometimes very daunting for some students who don't want to write essays. And they're also free to pick lesser subjects. You don't have to do all the 6. You can do just 4. And you don't have to do like the diploma. You need 3 HLs and 3 SLs. You can skip that in the certificate. You can do all 4 SLs, or you can do 1 HL, 3 SLs. You can do a mix and match. So the certificate in that sense gives you more flexibility, but it's not as detailed and comprehensive as the IB, the diploma program. And you have to look at, again, coming down to what are you looking at in terms of pursuing your career in. If it's something that requires 3 HLs and 3 SLs, then you'll have to go to a diploma program. But if there are college courses that offer you a course with just the 4 subjects at any level, be it the higher level or the standard level, then you can opt for a certificate. Again, coming down to what your strengths are. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Ruchi. I'm going to open this up to both of you again, but another question we have from a grade 10 parent is actually, how does my child prepare in advance for IB? And we'll start off with that, but then beyond that, what are the main skills you need to actually succeed in the IB diploma? And just beyond that, folks, we'll answer this later, but what courses do you offer and how will it support my daughter? We'll sort that out in a little bit, and about how you can potentially have an IB session. Both Ruchi and Magda are also coordinators on the team here, so they are very well versed in what's happening as well. But we're going to start with, how does my child best prepare and what are the main skills for success in IB diploma?
Okay, so if your child is going through the MYP program, by years 4 and 5, they will already start preparing and building up those skills. So that is one route, like teachers and the school, especially by the final year of MYP, that is going to start happening because the program becomes more challenging in the final year of MYP. But if not, don't worry, because there's still ways that can happen. And I've come up with 4 skills that are really, really important pre-diploma. And that, well, the first one's not a skill, it's curiosity. Be curious. Start to look around and ask questions. Why is this like that? Why does that work like that? And then going off from curiosity, research skills. If a student is not very strong in knowing where to find information, where to look, this is something to look at. You know, because it's not just about doing a Google search and then using the first article and being, oh yeah, that's it, that's the truth, that's the info. It's about learning how to dig deeper and knowing where to look, how to use Google and then other platforms as well to search for information. And then going off from that, you know, how to create bibliographies and citations. You know, that can be something to look at as well, because some students find that hard in diploma and it's really important. Another one is independence. So being able to do things on your own, not just what your teacher tells you and stopping at that, but going beyond what is required. And again, having that curiosity to find out a little more about a topic. Because if you become independent, you know, before you start the diploma, you really need that in the diploma. You need to be able to manage your time. You need to be able to research beyond the sources that you're given. And then my final one would be read. Read books, read articles, get used to reading different types of texts. You know, read things like sort of higher end newspapers like, I don't know, The Economist. Try to tackle reading an Economist article. Look at the way that information is presented in a magazine like that, because it's going to be quite challenging. And then read books, read novels. That is going to help you, especially for English, language and literature. But then also read nonfiction books that are related to the social sciences. That would be my nugget of advice.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Ruchi, do you have anything yourself to add onto that?
Yeah, I'll just add on to that. I think it's good to start IB a little earlier on, right? Because of the complexity and how extensive the course is, it's good to lay certain foundations beforehand. And I think Magda did point out those 4 important skills. But I think there's a lot of focus. I mean, if you just look at the IB logo itself, the heart of the logo is the IB learner profile, which she spoke about. You know, are we being inquirers? Are we being principled in the way we research? And so I think the idea in IB of starting off early is to introducing yourself to becoming more independent, like she said. And a good way to start early is a good 5 months in advance again, because it takes that much time to familiarize yourself with the content, and not just the content in terms of learning, but how to learn the content, right? There's different type of skills that we need. There's a lot of critical thinking. There's a lot of analytical skills, which sometimes maybe too much for a grade 11 student. So we break it down to mere basics if we start off a little early. Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, folks. We're slowly going to start wrapping this up at this point in time, but as we just continue forward, I'd love to answer this. I'd love for you two to answer potentially the second part of this, or I can help out as well. Just in terms of this, how do you have an IB session with us? What courses do we offer? That sort of thing. We really offer a range of subjects. We work with over 100 different educators at this point in time, and that's across pretty much every IB subject. There are a few that we don't touch on. Some of the languages that are less well taken, we don't really touch on as much potentially, and a few others. But if you're looking at your stock standard items and a few of the ones beyond that, and just the range of humanities, STEM subjects and all that, we do all of that at certain points of time as well. What we do is we offer a free trial to anyone who's working with us. And then what happens is you're paired with a coordinator like Ruchi or Magda, who sort of helps to be the center point of your contact with the SEND now. So if your child is working with several different subjects, across the SEN now, then you have one person who understands them and is pretty much like their IB coordinator in school, but it's just for one person, which means that you really have that personalized service about how well your child's doing, how well you're doing, and where you can then go into succeed in the various offerings that you might be able to look at certain points in time. There's a phone number on the screen as well as the SENNOW website if you want to check that out. And I believe Debbie's popped in some emails over there. So if you have questions about that, we're happy to answer them. Please do reach out as well. We enjoy being able to pass on the knowledge that we have ourselves. And so that's always a fun thing for us to do. Are there any more questions from anyone in the audience at this point in time? If not, I would love to be able to call on both Magda and Ruchi, and maybe if you guys have any closing statements, any last bits and bobs of thoughts, inspirations, or anything that you'd like to sort of wrap up in a nice little present in time for Christmas, maybe that's something that we can just pop over right now. So Ruchi, can I go to you first, please?
Yeah, I know the pressure is high, guys, and it's intense, but let's take it one day at a time and you'll get there. All the best.
Fantastic. Thank you. Actually, I have one more question. Sorry, just before you go, Magda, I do apologize. What do you guys think of a gap year? Because we know how busy it can get during the first term of grade 12 for every single student out there. So I just want to know, what do you two think of students actually being like, okay, I'm going to take some time after school to see what I would like to do as well and not necessarily go straight into university? I'd just like to know, what are your thoughts? There's no right, wrong answer to this, obviously, but just from folks who are actually examiners and folks who know IB very well, would that help to ease the burden of the university applications coming through at the same point in time?
Very good question. I think a gap year is something to think about for sure. You need to know yourself really well. So if you want to take a gap year, don't make it just a random holiday or like sitting around at home doing nothing. Okay, if you're going to take a gap year, it could be amazing. It could be really, really rewarding. Just make sure that if you plan to go to university after, make sure that you can defer your entry, make sure that you know the requirements of taking a gap year with the university that you want to go to, and then go and do that and figure out what you want to do during your gap year that's going to add value to your future, to your life, to your time at university, maybe some volunteering or some sort of travel that's going to enrich you culturally. It's going to help you see things that you haven't seen before. But ultimately, you're going to have to decide if it's for you, because if you want to go straight to university and you're already gunning for that and you're ready for it, then maybe that's the path for you. If you already know what you want to do, like you want to go into medicine or pre-med and you're, that's your path, then go for it. Maybe if you're not sure what you want to do in university, maybe a gap year is going to help you figure that out. But it really does take a great deal of self-reflection and also talking to various people. Get as much advice and get as many different perspectives as you can. Ruchi, anything to add?
Yeah, I think it just boils down to your heart motive, right? Why do you want to take that gap year? If you feel it's going to strengthen you and you discover a lot more about yourself and about what you want to do, then use it well. And I think it's perfectly fine. But if you're just like, I just want to take a break, I don't want to study, then please don't take that gap year. It's not going to help. It's just going to make things worse. So as students, ask yourselves, and I think you're the best judge, and you know very well why you want to take that gap year. Use that year well if you're taking one.
Fantastic, thank you. And I do apologize, Magda. If you've got any final thoughts, this is the moment. But yeah, we'll wrap up after that so that you guys don't have to hear me anymore, and we'll finish with Magda.
Oh yeah, just take it one day at a time, as Ruchi said, and trust us when we say, after the diploma, you're going to be so glad that you did it. You're not going to think that way when you're in the middle of it. I know. But trust me, after you've done it, you're going to be so proud of yourself. You are going to be so proud that you did that, because other students and other people your age who didn't do it, they're not going to have that same feeling of accomplishment. So keep that in mind.
Fantastic. And with that, we will end. Thanks for joining us all today, folks. Please reach out if you'd like to. The stuff's all there, but really, thank you, Ruchi, Magda, for your time today, for the organizers, obviously Gaurav, Shardul, and to all of our participants who are here to obviously listen in and ask you awesome questions. Without you, we wouldn't be talking to thin air. So go out and have a great day. Hopefully it's not too rainy where you are. See ya.